Hello all and welcome to the official FanTeam podcast brought to you by FanTeam, the biggest daily fantasy site in Europe. My name is Andrew and today I'm joined by fantasy football expert and guru Holly Shand. It's great to have you back on, Holly. How are you?
I'm doing well, Andre. Thank you so much for inviting me back once again.
I hear you had a close call the other week on some big cash, was that right, potentially?
Yeah, that's right. The Gameweek 5 weekly monster. It was the big one, wasn't it? 100,000 euros. And I was like 40th going into the last game, which was Leeds v Wolves. And I had a Leeds defender, so I was hoping that Leeds would keep a clean sheet. Jimenez would stay quiet. I did get up as far as 20th. Then
Wow.
Jimenez goal sent me down the rankings a little bit, but I still ended up in the top 100 and got €105 payout. So I was very pleased with that. So I'm hoping to push on from there now.
Very nice. I believe actually in the same game week, I didn't win as much as you, but I was kind of up as well. I was up around the €250 sort of prize, and I only had Dallas on that Monday evening, I think. So that Jimenez goal kind of took away Dallas's clean sheet points and gave Jimenez owners the points as well. So I ended up with about €45 win, I think. But it's nice to see the cash is rolling off the tournaments. How is your fantasy season going, Holly?
Well, it's been a tough start to the season for me, if I'm honest. It's been very unpredictable so far, but I've found that in the last couple of game weeks, things have settled down a little bit, which sort of coincided with that big win on the weekly monster.
Yeah,
so I'm
nice.
hoping things will continue to be a bit more predictable going forward and then show some positive correlation between that and my rankings in these season-long tournaments.
For sure. It seems like now we're seeing a few more clean sheets. The score lines being less extravagant, maybe. Is that how you're seeing it as well?
Yeah, certainly game week 6 was a real sense of that, wasn't it? And, I'd like to see a few more goals than we did in game week 6,
Yeah.
but it was nice to see a few clean sheets starting to drop in, and that might mean I need to alter my tactics a little bit on FanTeam.
Okay, great stuff, and many, many thanks for coming on again, Holly. So for our YouTube watchers, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and to press the like button if you enjoy our content. So our feature tournament for this podcast and video is the Gameweek 7 Weekly Monster, and we'll be running through the weekend's applicable fixtures and sharing our entries with you. So our watchers and listeners are aware what it is. It's very similar to the free hit chip in Fantasy Premier League, where you basically pick the best 11 players for the game week that you think will score the most points. So a very brief rundown of the rules. Every week you build a squad of 11 players. You can select up to a maximum of 3 players from each Premier League team. You have 100 million budget. You can make unlimited changes until the deadline at 12:30. You pick a captain and vice captain. Your captain will score double points. Players are priced in accordance with match odds, and a safety net applies, which is a really cool feature on FanTeam, that if a player does not start who you've picked, he'll be replaced automatically, if possible, by a cheaper player from the same club and position, and player prices will not change over the weekend. So for those watching on YouTube, the point scorer matrix is now on screen. As you can see, it's very similar to the season-long FanTeam game and indeed the Fantasy Premier League game. Holly, how have you been enjoying playing the weekly monster games this season? Having a free hit chip every week is obviously very, very different from managing a season-long game.
Yeah, it's great. And it's one of those where, when you've got a strong feeling about which players are going to do well, it's so frustrating looking at your FPL team or your season-long FanTeam game team and thinking, well, I can't get those players in this week, or I'm going to have to do some major surgery to have all of the ones that I want. Whereas at least in these free hit weekly monster sessions, you can, get all the players that you want, although the tricky bit is managing that budget.
It is, and last week, just as an example, I haven't got Salah in my FanTeam season-long team, and I was very, very nervous. Obviously, he blanked, right? But I put him as captain in my monster team, so you kind of have that reassurance and cover that if he does bang and score a couple of goals or a hat-trick, just as an example, you are kind of earning points somewhere and the chance to win some cash somewhere. So yeah, that's a real benefit of playing these weekly games. So there are 3 full round classic tournaments every game week. One has a prize pool of €10,000 with a guaranteed first prize of €1,000, which you can enter for as little as €2. There is a high roller tournament if you want to play for big money, but our feature tournament for this podcast is a €50,000 prize pool game with a guaranteed €5,000 first prize for a €20 entry, with prizes going down to 556th place. Just a reminder, to enter all FanTeam contests, you must be over 18 and be gambleaware.org. Holly, what would you do with €5,000 if you won?
That's a tough one at the minute, isn't it?
Your eyes really grew then when I said that.
I mean, normally you'd think, well, blow it on a holiday, but at the moment, the holiday options are limited. So, and maybe have to put it back to maybe a 2021 trip to Lapland with the kids, because I don't think that's something that will happen in 2020.
No, I don't think it will. Sadly, it's been very much a kind of improve the garden year this year rather than going on holidays, haven't it? So hopefully we can all get away next year for sure. So the 9 applicable Premier League fixtures for this competition are Sheffield United versus Manchester City. That's at 12:30 on Saturday. Then we've got Burnley against Chelsea at 3 o'clock. Liverpool versus West Ham at 5:30. And on the Sunday we've got Aston Villa versus Southampton. Newcastle versus Everton. Man United versus Arsenal. Big game there. Spurs versus Brighton. And on the Monday evening we have Fulham versus West Brom, followed by Leeds versus Leicester. So, Holly, looking at these fixtures, I think they're a bit nicer than last time we looked. I think the last ones we looked at were kind of a bit tough to pick out some options. But which of these are you kind of targeting?
Well, I can see the traditional top 6 sides doing very well this game week, particularly having Sheffield United away to Manchester City, where we'll have team news for that as well. So no getting on Pep Roulette, which is, fantastic. I know the safety net's very good for that. And then we've got Spurs at home to Brighton and Liverpool at home to West Ham. They're the ones that really stand out to me this weekend. The only trouble is with City. They've not exactly been free-flowing and scoring a lot of goals, but I'm hoping with KDB back, that's really going to help their cause.
I think the Oldham for Man City in the last few games has looked very, very good, haven't he? I wonder if he's finally kind of making that step up. I've noticed he's rightly been priced quite expensive this week in FanTeam because he's going to be one of the big options. Burnley and Chelsea, I think, is an interesting one. So Chelsea have just started to turn it around and play well. They obviously won 4-0 midweek in the Champions League, but Burnley are not, they kind of go out to stop you, as it showed against Spurs last week. So that's going to be...
Especially at home as well.
Home, yeah.
The Champions League has shown us, though, plenty of potential, like Manchester United, Chelsea and Liverpool somewhat. There's been a few question marks over all of those teams over the last few weeks, and they've all, gone out and really excelled in the Champions League. A few clean sheets in there as well, which has been encouraging as well. So, hopefully, these are the teams that kind of had a short pre-season because maybe they were involved in European football towards the back end of last year, and you've starting to see a little bit of solidarity there, new transfers bedding in, and hopefully they can push on from here.
Agree. I think another fixture which may go into the radar is Villa home to Southampton. So, Southampton play with this notorious high line. Villa got some very, very quick players like Grealish, Watkins, just an example who I think could maybe take advantage there. Newcastle and Everton. So I think Newcastle have been actually playing okay without having much reward. Everton defensively haven't been the best. I do think potentially players like Wilson, etc., could get a goal or two. And I think Everton without Richarlison have been a bit blunted in attack. I know he's back in a couple of weeks. I fully expect Everton to get back scoring lots of goals there. And look at Man United last night, right, in the Champions League, beating Leipzig 5-0. All of a sudden after one game, it makes you look at teams very, very differently, don't they? Because when Fernandes and Rashford came on last night, they absolutely blew them apart. So I own Fernandes in my FanTeam season-long game, and I'm actually quite excited for him now for this weekend, because I think that'll give him a massive, massive boost and potentially, give Arsenal a really, really hard game. Spurs versus Brighton, as you've said, Kane and Son in particular are absolutely on fire. I'm sure at least one of those will be in our teams when we have a look in a minute. Fulham and West Brom, the two teams who can't defend, playing each other. That should be an interesting one. I do like the look of Lookman at Fulham. He looks an incredibly sharp player, really full of life, very, very skillful. And I expect him to give the West Brom defence a bit of a going over. And Leeds and Leicester, two quite unpredictable teams, really. Obviously, Leeds go to the inform Aston Villa on Friday and against all the odds smash them away 3-0. But Leicester have been very tight at the back as well, only conceding one goal in the last 3, including Europe. So really good matchups there. But I agree with you. I think this is the week to target the top teams with potentially a couple of the other ones we kind of talked about then. So with this in mind, we are now showing Holly's entry into the Game Week 7 monster. Holly, would you mind running through your team and your thoughts for our podcast listeners?
Yeah, so I've been quite bullish on some of these top teams by bringing in, arguably their best player at the moment. So I've gone quite big in midfield,
Wow.
and I've tried to spend as little as possible in defence because other than Manchester City against Sheffield United, I can't really see a lot of potential for clean sheets this weekend. So for the midfield, I've got Salah, De Bruyne, Son, Fernandes, and Grealish. I'm actually backing against my FPL team that's got double Southampton defence by going with Grealish in FanTeam. But that midfield, I've got Salah, Son, and Fernandes in my FPL side as well. And KDB, having him back, that's going to be important for Manchester City to break down that Sheffield United defence. So that's where the majority of the funds have gone. So it's a little bit lackluster elsewhere, but you can always find some great value on FanTeam by, backing attackers in fixtures where the team they play for are by no means a favourite, and by finding defenders who maybe have got a tough fixture but provide plenty of quality going forward. So my forwards at the moment are Mikel Antonio, provided that he's past fit, against Liverpool at Anfield. Obviously, Van Dijk missing from that defence. I expect West Ham, who are one of the form teams at the moment, provide them with plenty of problems. And I've also backed up that the logic that I expect West Ham to score by going with their wingback Kufal, who's been very impressive. Only 4.7 million in this, which is a bargain. There aren't many defenders cheaper than him. I think he could probably get on the West Ham defence a little bit cheaper elsewhere, but he's playing wing back at the moment, so he's taken up those advanced positions, and he's already got a couple of assists this season. My other offensive player is Chris Wood. I know Burnley haven't been the most attacking, and they're hosting Chelsea, but I can see some holes in that Chelsea defence at times. And, that clean sheet last weekend on the road to Manchester United was a rarity for them. So that's why I'm backing Chris Wood, 6.6 million, so pretty cheap as well. And I've also gone with Nick Pope in goal for Burnley, because you never know what you're going to get with Chelsea. There'll be games where they have a lot of chances and struggle to find the back of the net, and then there'll be other games where they get quite a few goals. But how are those players that are still bedding in going to react, having had quite an eventful midweek game and then going straight back into the weekend with another fixture, more Champions League coming up midweek? It's not something that Chelsea are used to handling, particularly with it being Champions League and not having the opportunity to rest players midweek. So that's why I've sort of taken a punt on Burnley. I always choose a cheap goalkeeper, and Nick Pope seems like the best one because we know how good his shot stopping is. And then the two remaining defenders, not the most exciting, but both fullbacks, both known for getting forward, getting in the box, providing assists, maybe even an odd goal. So I've gone with Lamptey at Brighton against Spurs. That left back position for Spurs is one where you're not quite sure who Mourinho is going to go with. And, the fullback on the left-hand side has been the one that's been getting forward for Spurs in recent games. So I'm hoping that will provide space for Lamptey. And then I've gone with James Justin as well for Leicester City against Leeds United. We've seen for Leeds United, Luke Ayling is always getting forward from right back. James Justin tends to play this wing back position, with Leicester going with 3 central defenders. So I'm hoping that he gets some space as well to hopefully chip in with an assist. And we've seen that he can get the odd goal as well. He likes to bomb into the box, and there's going to be space in that game. And, with Vardy up front as well, I'm quite excited to see what the Leicester attack can do with Maddison in the mix as well. So, yeah, hopefully those defenders provide me something, even if it isn't a clean sheet.
Okay, that is a power midfield if I've ever seen one there, Holly. It looks absolutely superb. I can see you've captained Son as well. What's your thinking of captaining Son ahead of the other options?
I think I just prefer Spurs' fixture to Liverpool's, and it was just that, straight shootout. Would I prefer to be facing West Ham or Brighton? West Ham have been a bit more solid defensively, Whereas, Brighton look good on the eye, but still end up conceding those goals. So, yeah, Son for me all the way.
Yeah, and obviously Son will be up against Lamptey, who, as we know and as we've seen, likes to attack. He spends the majority of the match kind of in the opposition third as well, doesn't he? So I think Son could potentially get a lot of room there as well. So yeah, I think that's a really good team, really exciting team there, Holly. And so onto my team now. So this is my entry for this week's Game Week 7 Monster. So in goals, I have got Ramsdale, which may sound a bit counterproductive, since they're playing against Manchester City, but one of the big perks in FanTeam's, opposed to a lot of other fantasy games, is you get points per save, and I can imagine Ramsdale being absolutely peppered with shots for most of the game. So even if he does, even if Man City still score 2, 3, 4, which would expect them to do, there's a high likelihood of him making a lot of saves as well, just purely by the law of averages of the amount of shots he will face. Gone similar thinking to you in defence. I've got Creswell to your Kufal. Just purely, I've gone Creswell obviously because he's on some corners and free kicks as well. So I think he's only a kind of 0.1 or 2 more than Kufal, although I do agree Kufal looks a really good choice there as well. And I've gone Castagna over Justin. So again, very, very similar. Castagna looks very, very attacking. Looks a really good defender and attacking asset actually for Leicester. And I'm thinking of bringing him in soon actually into my season-long team, because Leicester seem to have tightened up at the back. He looks very, very good. And I've also gone for a cheapish option in Stuart Dallas. So obviously Leeds are playing Leicester, but Dallas does play in midfield at times as well. I expect he will play in midfield against Leicester because they only tend to play him in defence against their kind of stronger teams. So I do expect Dallas to play a bit forward, hope with some attacking returns. But same as you, I've decided to plump all my budget into midfield and into attack. So my midfield, so I've got Salah as well, I've got Son as well, and Fernandes as well. I've kept some money back to try and have a bit of money up front, but I've gone for 2 cheapest options in Saint-Maximin for Newcastle. So obviously Luca Dean is out for Everton's defence. Everton's defence hasn't been the best anyway, and I think Saint-Maximin can potentially have a bit of joy there, either scoring or assisting himself there. I expect Newcastle to score against Everton, and he's generally involved when they do score. And I've gone for Jared Bowen as well. So they are playing Liverpool, but as you've already mentioned, Liverpool's defence has been decimated, and they're planning, I think, on playing their youngster Reece Williams in defence. Hopefully will have a good game, but I fancy West Ham to give him a really good game. I can see it being a real sort of ding-dong game, and I expect West Ham to score a goal or two. And Jared Bowen, I think, has looked really, really sharp. I think, again, I'm bringing him in next week into my season-long team, potentially. But
I'm a big fan of Bowen.
Yeah.
And, really optimistic with that fixture. And I think in some ways, Bowen would be the go-to from that West Ham attack, because he's going to be the one that really, does Liverpool on the counter-attack when they're playing balls to feet, rather than, the long balls, the crosses. And, that Liverpool defence is threadbare right now.
I agree. And Bowen obviously attacks on the right-hand side. And Robertson, again, spends a lot of his time in the opposition third, don't he? So, again, I think, he's going to get a bit of space there. So I think at 6.2 million, I think he's a really good cheap option there. And then I've got a bit of cash up front, so I just can't look past Harry Kane at the moment. I mean, he's breaking all sorts of records. I read yesterday that he's got the most attacking returns ever in a Premier League game after 6 starts, which is just absolutely unbelievable. My kind of rule of thumb when looking at Spurs is I tend to captain Kane in the home games and Son in Son in the away games. Just generally, I think Spurs play a little bit more on the break away from home, where Son gets most of his returns. But Kane, he's on fire. He's involved in everything. He's on penalties, which is obviously a massive thing as well. You don't need to play well to score a penalty. So I've gone for the double up because I just think they're going to score a few goals against Brighton, and generally they tend to assist each other, don't they? So
yeah, exactly. On reflection, I'm thinking, am I making a mistake here going in without Kane?
It's hard. It's harder with you, obviously, because your midfield is so fantastic as well. It's really, really tough to make decisions. But this is why I may again enter a couple of teams to cover a few of the bases, because
yeah, I'm just thinking back to game week 5 when I really nearly hit the big payout. I had Kane captain,
okay.
Son, and I think I had Reguilon in that game who'd got an assist. So I'm gonna have to try and squeeze him in now.
And my other striker, so I've gone for Ollie Watkins, who's obviously scored the hat-trick and got the assist against Liverpool a few game weeks ago. He hasn't got anything else since, but he will be playing against this high line of Sam's at the back. He's very, very quick. He should have scored last game week. I think you'll get plenty of service. I think you'll get chances. As long as he takes one or two, I think you'll get some attacking returns. I think for 10.2, I think actually he's a good price there again. I'm surprised at the price of Bruno Fernandes. If you look at the other players, the other proper premium players like Sterling, Salah, Kane, they're always 13, 14 million, but Bruno every week seems to be about 10 million. I've no idea why.
Yeah, no, I was clicking through to find him, and I had to go onto the second page of midfielders, and he was about halfway down. I was like, well, nailed on now for me.
Absolutely.
I think it's because it's Arsenal, but Arsenal have been pretty toothless in attack, and haven't looked that great defensively either. And they're going to have one day less to prepare because they're playing Europa League on Thursday compared to Manchester United, who is in Champions League on Wednesday. So
I agree with that. I do expect Arsenal to smash Dundalk. They're playing this evening, and they're far superior. So I do expect them to rest Aubameyang and a couple of their premiums. But still, the way United played last night, United are such a confidence team, aren't they? Is that when they're playing well, they just go and they just play in a completely different fashion. When they're not, when they're average, it doesn't really seem to be a kind of middle ground. They're either superb or they're lackluster, aren't they? So hopefully for Man United they'll have turned a corner, because I do think Bruno is a really good option there. Were there any other players at all, Holly, that you were thinking about maybe which didn't kind of make the cut? Or
well, Harry Kane obviously was one of them. And looking at your team, I really wanted Castagna, but I was like 0.2 off.
Oh, no way.
So I had to settle for Justin. But I completely agree that he's probably the go-to of those pair of wing backs in that Leicester City defence.
Yeah, agree. I think the first time I haven't got any Man City attack, right, which is obviously a concern, but I do think that they're very expensive. I do think Sheffield United, they showed real steel last week against Liverpool, and if they play that way again and take the game to Man City a little bit, obviously there is the chance of City kind of cutting through them on the break and running riot, but City haven't looked exactly sharp, so I'm not sure it's maybe as clear cut as maybe last season.
For De Bruyne to be one of the the most valuable, you can see like a scenario within the first 20 minutes of the game that maybe doesn't favour City, and if Sheffield United get through that spell, then City need an early goal, don't they? For sure.
Agreed. So yeah, I think they're expensive this week, and and Foden, even though I think he's a wonderful player, he's 3 million more than Bruno Fernandes, which to me is a bit balmy. So I haven't gone with any Man City players. Okay, so that is it from us for this episode. All the links are below for all the games we have discussed today. Thank you so much, Holly, for joining me this week. We will have you on again very soon if you will have us.
Thank you.
And remember that if you liked what you watched, please press the like button, and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you are listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. So this podcast will be available as a video on the FanTeam YouTube channel and available as an audio podcast on all major podcast libraries, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Just search for Official FanTeam Podcast from wherever you get your podcasts. Our website is fanteam.com, and our Twitter handles are @FanTeamOfficial and @Fanteam_UK. Give us a follow for regular game updates and for entry giveaways for lots of other FanTeam competitions. We'll be back next week, looking ahead to the Game Week 8 Weekly Monster. The very best of luck for this weekend. Stay safe and goodbye for now.